They say curiosity is harmless, but they never tell you what happens when you see something you weren't meant to see. When you look too long. When the quiet neighbor with the perfect garden and sweet smile turns out to be hiding something so vile, so twisted it changes the way you look at everyone around you. I thought I moved to a peaceful neighborhood for a fresh start. I thought the woman 2 houses down was just another kind soul trying to be friendly. But I was wrong. Dead wrong. What I saw in her basement window, what I uncovered, still keeps me up at night. And now she knows. This isn't just a story about uncovering a secret. It's about what happens after. I never imagined a quiet suburban neighborhood could hide something so disturbing, something that would haunt me every single night since. When I moved into Cedar Hollow, all I wanted was peace. A fresh start. After my divorce and the emotional mess that followed, I needed a reset. And for a while, that's exactly what I got. The neighborhood was quiet, calm, almost too perfect. People waved from their porches, lawns were trimmed like something out of a magazine, and the air always smelled faintly like jasmine and grill smoke. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. Then I met Darlene. She lived 2 houses down in a charming old Victorian home with a pale blue roof and a wraparound porch that looked like it belonged in a movie. She had the kind of effortless grace you notice immediately. Always in a pressed dress, silver hair tied back in a loose bun, lipstick perfectly in place, even when she was just taking out the trash. She smiled all the time. Warm. Inviting. Like someone's favorite aunt. She brought me a basket of homemade blueberry scones the first week I moved in. I still remember the way they smelled, fresh, buttery, with just a hint of lemon zest. We made small talk. She said she lived there alone ever since her husband passed. No kids. Just her and her dog, Luther. She said she liked the quiet too. We started chatting more and more. I'd run into her on walks or see her tending to her garden. At first, I welcomed the company. After all, starting over meant starting fresh with people too, right? But the thing is, I've always had this sense. A gut feeling. And something about Darlene, it tugged at me. I couldn't explain it then. But it started with her basement. One evening, just before sunset, I was out watering my plants. The shadows were long across the lawn. Her house was across from mine, and from where I stood, I could just barely see into the small rectangular basement window that faced my driveway. That's when I saw it. Just a flicker at first. A quick movement. I didn't think much of it. Probably the dog. But then I looked again closer. There were eyes. A pair of eyes, wide and terrified, staring straight out that basement window. And they were looking right at me. I froze. It lasted only a few seconds. A heartbeat, maybe. Then they disappeared. The curtains snapped shut from the inside. The lights went out. It was like nothing had happened. But I know what I saw. Still, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a reflection. Maybe I was just tired. You start doubting yourself when you've been through emotional trauma. I wanted peace, desperately. And sometimes peace means ignoring things that don't make sense. So I ignored it. Until it happened again. A few nights later, I was up late with a cup of tea, sitting by the window. The street was quiet, silent really, except for the occasional owl. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw something again. Movement. That same basement window. This time, I didn't hesitate. I walked to the window and pulled the curtain back slightly. I focused. I waited. And there they were again. Those eyes. Frightened. Begging. I swear I felt it. A silent scream behind that glass. Then gone. The curtain dropped. The light vanished. The house fell back into stillness. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I walked past her house slowly. Everything looked normal. She was outside trimming her roses. Smiling. She waved, offered me coffee. Like nothing had happened. Like she didn't have a terrified prisoner in her basement. I told myself I was overthinking again. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was the dog. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was horribly wrong. And then things started to get even stranger. Over the next few days, I couldn't look at Darlene the same way. Every time I passed her house, my eyes were drawn to that basement window. Always shut. Curtains always pulled. Not a single sound came from that part of the house. And yet it consumed my thoughts. I started imagining all sorts of things. Was someone down there? Was I seeing things that weren't real? One night, I convinced myself I had to say something. So I did. Casually. Over coffee. She invited me over one afternoon. The house, as always, was spotless. Smelled like cinnamon and lavender. Her dog, Luther, lay quietly by the fireplace. She poured tea, offered me lemon cookies, and talked about the book club she hosted once a month. I remember sitting across from her, trying to find the right words, my cup shaking slightly in my hand. "Do you use your basement much?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She barely blinked. "Not really," she said, sipping her tea. "It's mostly storage. Dusty old boxes, you know. Nothing interesting." That was it. Just like that. Polite, calm, and final. I felt stupid for even asking. But something in her eyes, just for a split second, tightened. Like she didn't expect the question. That night, I couldn't sleep again. My mind kept circling back to those eyes. Whoever they belonged to, they were real. And they were scared. I couldn't shake it. I couldn't pretend anymore. So I started watching. It sounds terrible now, but I did. From my window, I watched her house for the next few nights. I kept the lights off and stayed back in the shadows just in case. And that's when I noticed the pattern. Every night around 11:15, Darlene would go out to her garden shed. She'd stay inside for a minute or two, then return with a small tray, covered in a towel. And every time, she'd disappear into the basement entrance through the side door of her house. Not the front door. Not the back. But the side. Always the same routine. In. Out. Nothing else. That was when I knew something was wrong. I started writing everything down, times, actions, dates. I even took pictures with my phone from a distance. Just in case. Then came the night that changed everything. It was just past midnight. I was at my window again, watching. She had gone into the basement with the tray like usual. But this time she stayed down there longer. A lot longer. I must have waited 30 minutes before she finally came back up. But she wasn't alone. Behind her, something moved. Someone. It was quick, barely visible, but enough to send a chill straight down my spine. A figure. Thin. Unsteady. A face pale and gaunt, peeking just behind the door before Darlene slammed it shut. I gasped. I stumbled back. My heart was racing. I knew now, without a doubt, there was someone being held in that basement. The next morning, I called the non-emergency police line. I explained everything I'd seen. I didn't say it was an emergency, I just said I was worried. That there might be someone living in unsafe conditions at that house. They sent an officer to do a welfare check. I watched from my front porch as the patrol car pulled up to Darlene's driveway. She came out, smiling as always, wiping her hands on a towel like she'd just been baking. The officer spoke to her for a few minutes. She laughed, nodded, said something about nosy neighbors. Then he left. That was it. No basement check. No such. Nothing. I was furious. And terrified. Now she knew someone had reported her. That night I locked every door and window in my house. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. The next day, Darlene didn't wave at me. In fact, she didn't even come outside. The garden shed stayed closed. No sign of Luther. Her curtains were all drawn. It stayed like that for 2 days. Silence. A quiet that grew louder with every hour. Then on the third night, something even more disturbing happened. Someone knocked on my back door. Not the front. The back. It was 2:13 a.m. I didn't move at first. I just sat there frozen. The knock came again. Light. Slow. I crept to the door, heart pounding, and peeked through the curtain. No one. I flicked on the porch light. Still no one. But on the ground was a note. Just a scrap of torn notebook paper. 3 words written in trembling, frantic handwriting. Please help me. That was it. No name. No signature. Just that chilling message. I scanned the darkness around my yard. Nothing. No movement. But my hands were shaking so hard I dropped the note twice before locking the door again. I knew what I had to do. The police wouldn't listen to half-glimpsed eyes or creepy routines. I needed real proof. Something undeniable. I decided to break in. I didn't sleep at all that night. I stayed up with every light on, that note clutched in my hand like it might vanish. I knew it came from the basement. From whoever was trapped down there. And if I didn't do something, no one would. The next day I waited. Watched. Darlene didn't leave the house. Not once. She didn't get the mail, didn't walk Luther, didn't open a single curtain. It was like she'd gone into hiding. Or like she knew I was watching. So I waited for the next day. A Saturday. At exactly 4 p.m., a black town car pulled into her driveway. She stepped out, wearing a long navy coat and carrying a small clutch. She got into the car and drove off. I watched it disappear down the road, then waited a full 10 minutes to be sure. I ran across the lawn. The gate to her backyard was locked, but I climbed it. My hands were sweating. My heart was pounding so hard it echoed in my ears. Every part of me screamed this was a bad idea, but I kept moving. The side door was locked, of course. I went around to the garden shed and tried the handle. It opened. Inside was chaos. Nothing like the rest of her pristine house. Cobwebs. Old tools. And a shelf lined with small trays just like the ones I'd seen her carry, stacked neatly. Most were empty, but one still had something on it. A cracked bowl half full of gray oatmeal. And a used spoon. Nothing else. I grabbed one of the rusted gardening tools, a flat crowbar, and headed back to the basement door. I pried at the frame, desperate and clumsy. After a few painful tries, it finally gave way with a loud pop. The basement door creaked open. It was pitch black inside. The air was thick, stale, musty, and cold. I fumbled for my phone and turned on the flashlight. Dust danced in the beam. I stepped slowly down the stairs, each creak echoing like a scream. At the bottom, I found myself in a wide, low-ceilinged room. Old furniture stacked along the walls. Shelves covered in junk. But what froze me was the far corner. There was a small mattress on the floor. Thin. Worn down to the threads. A dirty blanket. An empty plate. A rusted bucket. And someone was sitting there. Huddled. I stepped closer, my hands trembling, the light shaking with each breath. That's when they looked up. A girl. She couldn't have been older than 17. Pale skin. Hollow cheeks. Hair matted and uneven. Her eyes, those same eyes I had seen in the window, met mine wide with fear. Then confusion. Then something else. Hope. She tried to speak, but her voice was barely a whisper. Just a raspy, dry breath. I crouched down slowly, keeping my voice soft. "It's okay," I whispered. "I'm here to help you. You're safe now." She shook her head violently. Her fingers gripped my arm with surprising strength. "No," she rasped. "She's coming back." That's when I heard it. The door at the top of the stairs slamming shut. Footsteps. She hadn't gone out for the evening. She'd set a trap. I grabbed the girl's arm. "Come on, we have to go. Now." She tried to stand, but her legs were weak. I wrapped her arm around my shoulder and practically dragged her up the stairs. But the door was locked again. From the outside. I pounded on it. Slammed it. Screamed. Then I heard her voice, calm, composed, right outside the door. "You should have minded your business." My blood ran cold. She wasn't angry. She wasn't shouting. She sounded disappointed. "I gave you cookies," she said, almost sadly. "I brought you into my home. And this is how you thank me." I looked around desperately for another way out, but the basement had no other exit. The girl was shaking beside me, whispering something over and over again. "Don't let her take me back. Don't let her take me back." I held onto her tight, whispering, "I won't. I promise. I won't." Then the door creaked open. Darlene stood there in her navy coat, her hair perfectly in place, lipstick untouched. In her hand, something metal. I couldn't see clearly, but it glinted in the light. "You don't understand," she said quietly. "She's mine." I moved in front of the girl. "You're sick," I spat. "You need help." She didn't even flinch. They always say that. Then something unexpected happened. The girl screamed. Loud. High. Piercing. It startled even Darlene. In that split second, I shoved the door into her and bolted. I grabbed the girl's hand, pulled her through the hall and out the front door. I didn't stop running until we were on the street. Lights came on. Neighbors opened doors. Someone shouted. I didn't care. I just kept holding on to that girl like my life depended on it. The police arrived minutes later. They arrested Darlene that night. The basement was real. The captivity was real. And the girl, her name was Julia, had been missing for over 8 months. She'd been taken by Darlene while walking home from school. Drugged. Hidden. Kept in that basement like an object. Like a possession. All while the neighborhood praised Darlene for being such a sweet woman. She had fooled everyone. Everyone except me. The next few days felt like a dream. Or maybe a nightmare. Everything moved in a haze of flashing lights, police reports, endless questions, and the sound of sirens echoing in my ears long after they were gone. Julia was taken to the hospital immediately. She was severely underweight, dehydrated, and clearly traumatized beyond words. But she was alive. And that meant something. I sat in the waiting room for hours that night. I don't even know why. Maybe I just didn't want to go home. Maybe I didn't want to be alone with my thoughts. Or maybe I just wanted to see her, really see her, outside that basement in the light free. She opened her eyes around 3 a.m. Her mother rushed to her side, sobbing, holding her like she never wanted to let go. And I just stood there, a silent stranger in the background. Julia looked over, met my eyes again. She didn't smile. But she nodded. A small, quiet thank you. I went home the next morning and sat in the middle of my living room, still in the same clothes I had worn the night before. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. My chest felt like it was caving in. I kept thinking of how close I came to walking away. To pretending I didn't see those eyes in the basement window. To saying nothing. If I had, she'd still be down there. They found journals in Darlene's home. Dozens of them. Written in neat cursive. Pages and pages detailing everything, how she rescued girls from the world. How she gave them structure, safety, purpose. That's what she called it. But it wasn't safety. It was a cage. Darlene didn't deny anything. She didn't beg. Didn't plead. During her interrogation, she simply said, "I did what I had to do. They needed me." She was charged with kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, aggravated assault, and a dozen other things I can't even remember. The trial is set for later this year. The prosecutors are pushing for life without parole. And she deserves every second of it. But here's the part one never talk about. It didn't end there. Not really. A week after everything happened, I started getting mail. No return address. No postage stamp. Just envelopes left in my mailbox. Inside, each one was the same. A piece of paper torn from a notebook. With one word. Watcher. That's it. No explanation. No threats. Just that word. Again and again. I told the police. They looked into it but found nothing. No fingerprints. No prints on the mailbox. Nothing on the security cameras. It hasn't happened in a while now. But some nights, I still feel like I'm being watched. I see shadows where there shouldn't be shadows. I hear floorboards creak in the middle of the night, even though I live alone. My dreams are full of locked doors and muffled screams. And sometimes, I see her, Darlene, standing across the street, watching me, smiling. Of course, it's not really her. She's locked up now, behind thick bars and steel doors. But the image, the feeling, it lingers. I think part of me will always be in that basement. With Julia. With those eyes. With the silence that screamed louder than any voice. And sometimes I wonder how many others are out there. Other girls. Other boys. Other basements. Hidden behind perfect homes and friendly smiles. How many monsters wear perfume and bake cookies? Since it all happened, people call me a hero. They say I saved Julia's life. But sometimes, I wonder if I was too late. If the damage was already done long before I saw those eyes in the window. I don't know. All I know is, I can't sleep anymore. Not like I used to. Not with the silence. Not with the creaking floorboards. Not with the sound of that door slamming shut behind me. And not with the weight of that note, those 3 trembling words still echoing in my head every night. Please help me. Because I did. But I'm not sure I'll ever stop paying for it. Some people say I did the right thing. That I was brave. That I saved a life. But the truth is, I still wonder, what if I hadn't looked into that window? What if I'd ignored the fear in her eyes? How many others do we pass by every day, never knowing what's hiding behind the curtains? Evil doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes it wears a smile. And sometimes the monsters don't come out at night. They live right next door. If this story shook you even half as much as it shook me, subscribe to Requital Stories for more true tales of betrayal, buried secrets, and the darkness hiding in plain sight. You won't believe what's coming next.